Good afternoon. This is Quintus Curtius, and welcome back to the podcast. It's been a while since I've done a podcast, so I figured this was a good time to do that. I've got a little bit of time here as some lamb here cooks in the oven. So I thought I'd make a podcast here, and the subject of this podcast is basically going to be you're supposed to do something when there's problems. You're supposed to do something about it when you see there's a problem. And let me explain kind of where the title comes from and what we're talking about. There's a scene in the movie The Maltese Falcon, which is one of the few really old movies that holds up well. One of my favorite movies. It's the type of movie you can just watch over and over again. Really great. Came out in, 42, 41? Starring Humphrey Bogart, Mary Astor, Sidney Greenstreet, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, there's a scene in the movie towards the end, or right at the end, where he makes the decision to turn his girlfriend over to the police because she killed his partner, Miles. He makes the decision that he's going to turn her over. She's taking the fall. And, she goes into the usual antics. Why are you doing this to me? I can't believe this is happening. Why is this happening? Blah, 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 blah. The usual antics that you would expect. And he sits down and he says to her, look, I'm going to explain this to you, even though it's not going to do any good. You're never going to get it. You don't understand the code, but I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to explain to you why I'm doing this. And Humphrey Bogart, or Sam Spade, says to her, he says, when a man's partner is killed, he's supposed to do something about it. It doesn't make any difference what you thought of him. He was your partner, and you're supposed to do something about it. Then it happens. We were in the detective business, and, when somebody in the organization gets killed, it's bad business to let the killer get away with it, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, I always like this little soliloquy here because it really exposed the Sam Spade code, the code that he lived by. And in truth, Sam Spade was a lot less cynical than he appeared. He actually did live by a code, a very, very resonant and strong and well-structured code that really was built around the idea of virtue in many ways. And what he's telling her is basically, look, when somebody kills your partner, you got to do something about it. You can't just sit on your hands and let the killer get away with it just because she's a woman or you liked her or you loved her, or you have an ethical obligation to act. You have agency. You have an ethical obligation to do something, because if you don't, you're not going to be worth anything yourself. You're going to be nothing but a dry, empty husk of a man if you don't do something and take action. And I thought this was maybe the scene that really summarized the essence of the whole movie. It really summarized the whole Sam Spade code, because it encapsulates this dark film noir ethic, maybe, that even though the world can be a cynical and cruel place, and even though there's a lot of terrible things that happen, every man has to stand up and do what is right. And sometimes you have to stand up and do what is right when the deck is stacked against you, when the odds are stacked against you. You have to do something. You have to fucking do something, whether you want to do it or not. And I really like this ethic. I really believe in this. And, what I think we can get out of this, or what we should get out of this, I think we can draw an analogy to modern life and the situation we have maybe with our family or our job or with the country. And the ethic and the lesson here is that when something is fucked up, when something is bad, you don't fucking go and run off and hide and run off to Dicklickistan and rub your body with soy oil and look at yourself in the mirror and pursue narcissistic activities and run off to islands and talk about how great you are and everything sucks. And no, I don't believe in that. I don't accept that. I don't buy that. What a real man does is he stays and he fixes the problem, or he tries to fix the problem. When something's fucked up, you fucking fix it. You don't run off and hide and let those responsible get away with it. You don't do that. And that applies in your own personal life. It applies in your job. It applies when you're talking about the problems that your country faces. And I've said this before, but I think one of the biggest mistakes that, maybe my generation, Gen X, made, and maybe other, generations that came after it made, we, in many ways, we allowed the people that created the current problems that we have, we somehow we allowed this by not participating, by not standing up, by abandoning the playing field, as I've said before. And by abandoning the playing field, you allow the unworthies, you allow the dregs, the refuse, the scumbags, the rats, the weasels, the nibblers, the dunces, the dorks, you allow them to take over. And pretty soon you look around and, the whole ship is being commanded and guided by complete dregs. And then you say to yourself, how did this happen? Well, the answer is very simple. The answer is too many people said, I'm not going to do something about it. Too many people said, it's not my problem. And again, I'm not advocating, I want to make it very, very clear. I'm not advocating you stand up on a rooftop and shout slogans. I'm not saying you do anything, illegal or unethical or anything like that. What I am saying is this. I'm saying these institutions that we have, these are your institutions. These are our institutions. This is your job. This is your life. And I think too many of us, too many good men have bought into this ethic that says, well, if something's messed up, I just got to put my head down and I got to hide and I got to try to see what's going on. And no, I'm at the point now in my life where I think, no, you have to say something. You have to do something. If something's fucked up, you have to say something. If something is hosed up, you have to try to fix it. You have to try, at least try. Because if you don't, then what you're doing is you're basically bequeathing all of these problems to your progeny. You're passing along all of these terrible, terrible problems to those who come behind you, which is what, in many ways, the boomers did to us. It was more important for them to have fun, to milk the system for all they could get out of it. And what did they do? They passed on to their future generations a whole hosed up mess, which is what we're all trying to deal with now. So I think that, I think we can learn a lot from movies. I mean, those of you that follow me on Twitter know that I like to discuss and critique film, to extract the ideas that you can find in movies, because I do think that they are in many ways the modern version of theater, of plays. And, I think this little speech in the Maltese Falcon is something that's really worth listening to and taking to heart, because there's a lot there. There's a lot of meaning in that, because all of us, and look, realistically, everybody knows, not everyone is going to be elected to be a senator or a mayor or a congressman or whatever. Not everyone is going to have the opportunity to really try to put things, to actually try to, be in a position to legislate change. But I do think that good people can make a difference in any way. It can be even in the smallest ways. Speaking out to other people, challenging unjust or unreasonable or oppressive ideas. Speaking your mind. Don't just accept things that are messed up. Don't just roll over and say that, oh, this is great and we have to deal with this. Because one of the things I think that the past 2 years have taught us is that a lot of these so-called experts, or many of these so-called experts, they don't know any more than you do. In fact, you may know more than they do. Now, that may not be true of everything. Obviously there's specialized knowledge, but I'll tell you what, it's been a real eye-opener to me that some of these specialists, quote unquote, they may have specialized knowledge, but the big picture is something that they lose sight of, because we live in an ass-covering world where many times people will just do stupid things to cover their asses, not because they're meaningful, not because the actions or the ideas are meaningful, but because they want to be protected. They want to cover their asses. And that's what happened all throughout the COVID crisis of the past 2 years. Everybody was just trying to cover their asses. That's all they were doing. And so it was one stupid, asinine restriction after the next that everybody knew was bullshit, but they did it anyway. They did it anyway because they were afraid of being blamed for something. And that's what matters. So my point here is, again, you're supposed to do something about it. And go back and rewatch the Maltese Falcon and look for that little soliloquy at the end. And I think it'll mean something more to you maybe than it does now. Because my feeling is, and my practice now in life is going to be, again, I'm not going to, you're not going to go out of your way to do stupid things or to, do just things that are, self-destructive or pointless or malicious. I'm not talking about anything like that. But I am saying when the time is right, there are intelligent and appropriate ways to challenge stupidity and to challenge injustice and to challenge wrongs. And by doing that, not only do you stand up for yourself and you reassert your own identity and your own essence as a man of virtue, but you also help your society and your nation. All right. That's enough for today. I'm Quintus Curtius. Have a good afternoon.